Hi, I'm Lauren Perlingi, intuitive human design business guide, trauma informed healer, and the creator of the 90-second method. I help sensitive, intuitive entrepreneurs understand how you're wired emotionally and energetically, which is very important, so you can stop forcing life and business and start making aligned decisions that actually feel good and sustainable. And today's conversation is a very powerful one. But before I share more, I want to start by welcoming our guest and letting her introduce herself in her own words. Deborah, I am so honored to have you here. So go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody listening.
So I'm Devorah Brinckerhoff
Oh,
um, and a mixed media artist. I went to art school and have been painting for 30 years, and left the galleries in 2019 because I really wanted to have more of a direct relationship with the people who resonated with my work.
love that. So can you kind of, you know, I guess I should say, what I want to say before we dive in is your story holds so much depth and courage and truth. Can you kind of start where I don't want to say start at the beginning, but like start at where, like, take us back to that moment when something shifted for you, like from your past and your present, like collided together. What was like that moment? Can you kind of like start there and talk about that moment?
Sure. So, the best way for me to describe sort of the unfolding of my own self-awareness at a deep, deep level was when I got pregnant for the first time. And I had been wanting to be a mom since I was 9 and I was not lucky in relationships at all. I had pretty terrible relationships up until I met my husband, and we got pregnant when I was 32. Um, and the alarm bells all started going off. So I panicked. I was just like, this, I can't, no, I don't want this. I cannot have this being in my own body. And it just started to open this door that something had happened to me a long time ago that I had totally repressed and suppressed. So that was the beginning of discovering that I had been sexually abused as a very young child, talking infancy, because the way that I protected my daughter once she was, well, always, but, and all of my
Mhm.
children, but um, I did not let my husband hold her. I could barely tolerate
Mm.
anyone taking her. I, I was one of those parents that slept next to my babies. And I ended up like leaving our bedroom and taking her to a different room. Like it was intense. And then about 18 months, I would sort of settle down my hyper protection mode.
Mhm.
So that gives me kind of the window of when I was harmed between 0 and 18 months. Um, but I didn't
Mm.
know. And so we, after that initial experience, the second pregnancy was a lot easier because I just let it all go. As I didn't know, I still didn't know. I just knew something was up, but I didn't know what. And it took a long time to figure it out.
Yeah. Now, when you said that, is it something that came through you like a vision, or I'm just curious. And I'm like, okay, so
Sure.
like, and the reason why I'm asking this is because we talk about this a lot on the podcast, especially because a lot of people are coming out about their childhood. And I feel like when I started talking about my own sexual trauma when I was, 5, 6, maybe even happened before that, from what I remember.
Mhm.
But mine was very vivid for me in a dream. Was yours, what was like, how did you kind of know it was zero to you just kind of felt it deeply?
Well, it was really my behavior with my daughter
Okay.
and
Okay.
my son and my third daughter. So like
Okay.
and by the time I was pregnant for the third and final time, not only did I understand that I had been sexually abused, I had really put a lot of the pieces together.
Mm,
And I but I never had any memory. It was really more of a
okay.
body memory. So
Okay.
like like I would notice the things that were really, really difficult for me, and that would lead me to have clues about what had happened. But it was
Mm,
very fuzzy. So, um, when I had read a letter that was very loving and very kind, and I just had this wash come over me that said, this is who it is. And I was like,
mm,
what? And
yeah,
so just like, no, that cannot be true. And so then there's this real fight with this kind of like, I don't know even how you want to describe it, but it was like the universe was telling me, and I just had to like take that in. And it was a knowing. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. Right. And that's a hard thing because, people want proof and they want memory and they want
yeah,
something concrete. And I didn't and still don't have anything concrete other than that. Um, and I thought about going and talking with this person, and I was like, nope, that's not going to happen. And so really decided to deal with it with myself and my husband and my husband's family and my therapist at the time,
yeah.
just work through it. And it was like a 10-year intense, intense time in so that was sort of the outer bubble, and then there was this inner bubble with two of my children, my oldest and my middle, where they started behaving oddly, and I was like, what's going on here? And we had had them in therapy for just the birth of my second child as a like let's get you prepared for what this is going to be kind of thing.
Sure.
And that therapist was like, I think your daughter's been sexually abused. And I was like, nah, no, no way. And and so it sort of got buried until my son started having really strong behavior issues that we could not ignore. And that really opened the can of worms. And so if it were not for him, I really would not have known about what was happening with our children. And when we finally discovered who had been harming my children, the whole everything blew up because that was it was really close. It was my husband's father's second wife's child, and one of them. And when we finally figured it out and told my father-in-law, everything fell apart. And
Mm,
he contacted my family, and they entered into a lawsuit against us, and I was excommunicated from my family of origin. So, sexual abuse is a very difficult topic, and
yeah,
it really uh, throws people for a loop, and they want to demonize the abuser, and it just there's so much fear around it and so
mhm,
much resistance to it that it causes way more harm, I think, in the aftermath than it does. Not to dismiss what happens because it's brutal, and the lens
yeah.
of sexual abuse is a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like, thank you for being so courageous and talking about that because I know that it can feel, even now, still, when I talk about mine, like I've healed so much of it, but there's still part of me that is angry about it, right? Like it makes me feel emotional, and when people talk about their stories, I don't know if it's my emotion or their emotions, but like I always tear up. My body is like I hear you. I know the feeling. It's kind of like, when if I were to tell my mom about what happened, she wouldn't believe me. So like what's the point of saying it? You're not going to believe me. The person that's supposed to protect me isn't even believing me. So like you doing that for your kids is amazing. Same thing with my daughter. I was so overprotective in the beginning because I was like, I don't want this pattern to live inside within her because I was still clearing out mine. And sometimes, when we're clearing out our own patterns, it still does live in our kids. And that's not our fault. It's just what everybody chose. Like we all chose this. And I said that on a podcast, I think a couple weeks ago, and the host had said that I got some of her listeners got triggered. And I'm like, well, that's okay. Like, we all chose to come here. We all chose to clear out karma. We all chose to learn lessons. Like, I'm not saying you chose to be sexually abused. You just chose the experience of learning how whatever you needed to learn through that. I mean, like, no, you're not responsible for your trauma. You're just responsible for the other part, the healing part, like that part. And I'm like, and somebody that can't hear that isn't going to hear that unless they need to hear that, you know? And that was another thing I was talking to a client about. She goes, last week you told me this, Lauren, and this week I can hear it. And you told me that this week. And I'm like, it's interesting that you're saying that because I feel like, for instance, the abuser or somebody that's guilty, of course they're not going to want to hear it because they know they did it. So their actions just prove, yeah, that's me, I'm guilty. You know what I mean? Like I think that that is I think what and yes, and in the court of law, and if you want to charge people, like all of that stuff, you have to have proof. But it's just like sometimes it's just easier. And I found it easier for me that I just learned I had to forgive that person without actually hearing I'm sorry. Because, like, is he going to say he's sorry? No. He's going to just say it? I don't even think that he even realizes. I mean, I know he knows. There's obvious distinctions when I do different things or I say different things. It's a huge like I'm not supporting you because he's so scared I'm going to talk about it. It's going to blow up his life. I mean, it happened when we were 5 and 6, and it's like I chose not. I don't need revenge. That's not going to do anything for anybody. I had to heal from something that you just weren't going to ever say sorry about, and I think that that is the journey of forgiveness, right? And we're all kind of on a journey of forgiveness here, and I think that that is the most powerful thing too.
Absolutely. And I really recognize that the people who are harming others, my sense is that they were harmed as
Yeah.
well in some way that they just could never, ever let it out. And
Right.
it comes out sideways. And so like blame is certainly, I understand blame. I've had my own desire for that, rage,
Hmm.
all kinds of reactions. And at the end of the day, the reason I would never want to be in the mind of somebody who, and a lot of people like literally do not remember, like 100% are in such deep, deep, deep denial because they have to be.
Yeah.
So wherever we are on that sort of coping spectrum and how we move through our own lives. So you're right, like just to choose, for me, it was like self-forgiveness first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like that's all I can do, and I hold nothing against you. Everyone is doing their best, even when they're causing terrible, terrible harm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I mean, I don't know, like maybe there are a few people out there that are just like, I'm gonna destroy and I'm gonna know it. And
Hmm.
that's my intention and that's my role in life. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna stay really from you. So,
Right. Right.
so I don't know what goes on in other people's minds, but I wouldn't want to be in that mind. It feels like a very, very dark place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, it's not even like when people are experiencing their own childhood trauma or, all the things that are happening in the world today. It's just like everybody has a role here to play. Like we all have a role here to play. And maybe some people are just better at playing their role than others. And I feel like the people that we look at that are really shitty people, it's just their lifetime to play that role. We all have played that role. Like regardless, you just don't remember. I think from my past karma and experiences, I always say like I was a really shitty person and I abused my power. I was in a lot of lifetimes and like higher power. So like and I abused that and I can feel that this lifetime because I need to. Like I need to understand it from all perspectives and I think that that's like the most important thing that I had to tell myself because like when you say forgiveness, if forgivenesses look like, oh, you have to forgive that person because like that's just the right, like no, like forgiveness is all about yourself. And if you want to forgive the other person to release it, that's also a choice of yours. But I feel like forgiveness is definitely for yourself, so you can like stop carrying that burden in like your book bag of rocks that you're carrying around.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, when you were experiencing your kind of uncovering of your own childhood trauma and when you were protecting your kids at the same time, like what was really happening internally for you for like some of the people, like some of the listeners that are listening that maybe could be going through this right now?
Well, I was completely overwhelmed. I think it's overwhelming to have children in the first place, let
Right.
alone
Sure.
discovering that. my own childhood was different than I thought it was. It was
Hmm.
very, like, I was not a happy kid. I had a lot of masking. I pretended to be whoever anybody else needed me to be. I
Mm.
was pretty miserable on the inside, and I am terribly dyslexic, and I really had a lot of trouble reading. And and I had tons of eating disorders all through high school, so a terrible relationship with my body. I refused to have, like, I didn't refuse. I wanted to have relationships. I had a terrible crush on somebody, but it was not reciprocated at the time. And so I just made terrible choices, right? And I was stealing and lying. I was just a mess. And so
Hmm.
I kind of lost track of your question. Then to have children and to know, like what you said earlier around not being protected as a child and then being hyper protected of my children,
Hmm.
there's this tension between those two things. Like I couldn't not protect them. It was like I did not care about anybody else. Like I chose to have kids and I just was this fierce mama bear kind of thing.
Hmm.
But that does, it causes its own kind of damage because the kids then feel like there's something wrong all the time. Like, why is my mom crazy? But it was normal for
Yeah.
them. But like I just didn't want them to suffer. And my idea of suffering was pretty I was very sensitive to it.
Hmm.
And so the whole like letting my children fail, not being the hero all the time, that was hugely challenging for me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't really know how to answer that question. Art and creativity it was always a central theme for me in terms of processing what I couldn't speak. So I did not know how to talk about sexual abuse. I did not know how to talk about myself. I I was such an incredibly different person than I was like such a different person than who I was growing up. And so I kept meeting these old versions of myself that were really hard to integrate. And
Hmm.
and artwork really, or creating work was my outlet and allowed me to express what I could not do otherwise. So it was a lifeline and a way forward for me. And that's why I teach what I teach. It gets to the places that you cannot reach otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. And you answer that question beautifully. Basically, what I was asking is like, I was trying to ask without asking, what did you use to integrate? And you kind of, you just said it like of the art. Because I feel like a lot of people, some people don't like art. Some people don't like whatever they like, or like it's something that brings you probably back. Not that, there's probably parts of your childhood that you could be like, are like nostalgic, but maybe not. I could be wrong. But like that art piece is like drawing and coloring, and that's going to bring out joy, or maybe that joy that you wanted to have but didn't. So it's like, I think that that's really beautiful because when there's people that I've been working with lately, which is very interesting because everybody is like on the same wavelength of like, I don't remember my child, because I'll say something and I remember when a healer asked me in the beginning, oh, well, what did you do with your childhood? What did you do, this, that, whatever? And I'm like, I don't remember. Like, I feel like my ego has protected these memories or these experiences so much that I can't even go into meditation. Immediately, my body hurts, like my head's pounding, like physical things that happen to my body that like I feel like somebody's strangling me, like I feel like I'm gonna die. In that space of like, oh my God. Like, I mean, to the point that had an experience multiple times of a near-death experience of dying. So it's like I know that feeling, and that's not the feeling I'm talking about. I'm talking about like physical pain. Then I'm like, is this when my ego like it's crazy, but it's like that is literally what people are telling me. And I'm like, oh, I remember that experience because it's like a real thing. But I feel like when people talk about it, especially in therapy, or like I've said that in therapy, and they're like, oh, that's just your imagination. And I'm like, no, this really happened to me. And it's like, okay, I'm going to stop talking because now you're going to deem me like crazy and put me on all these medications. And like, I'm just going to shut my mouth. So I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. But that's it. But so, yeah. So I think that is, mine was dance for a while and drawing and like even like now like coloring with my daughter and like going to do things with her like if it's riding her bike playing in the sand going to the ocean that brings it out because I feel like all of us moms included like we take life so seriously and I think I could have done a better job in the beginning of being that like hover protective mom, because I was so on the opposite of like, I don't want to be so protective because I don't want my daughter to feel like, stop being a helicopter mom, like I need to fail and I need to, that's one thing I love about my mom. She did, in a sense, protect me so much that I wasn't able to fail. So when I was a teenager, oh, I failed a lot. And it was like really things that like I should have done when I was a kid and not get in trouble for it, but I was getting in trouble with the law and I was doing some crazy shit, like wild stuff. And I think that I kind of switched that, because I'm like, damn, mom, like you didn't even let me, I didn't even know what drugs were. When people will talk about this and this and this, I was like sheltered. And I'm like, there has to be some balance in my parenting. Like I know she did the best that she could do. So it's interesting how we take from our childhood than how we parent and like hopefully my daughter will take whatever she doesn't like that I'm doing and change it in her parenting.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I always said this to my daughter. It's going to be interesting to hear your perspective of how I parented you because I'm interested. I want to know like what you didn't like, what you liked, that type of thing because I think that is I think, like you said earlier, we're doing the best that we can do. All of us are. Every single person on this entire planet. Maybe a lot of us can do better. But that's like an everyday thing, right?
Totally.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, there's so many people also that speak about this or stay in silence to avoid that rejection, especially when you talked about relationships. And I think this is huge thing. I'm included into like I really picked really shitty relationships too. Like my mom would always be like, "Why do you keep picking all these men that are abusive that you know the pattern, right? Like the pattern of the codependency." And I never really could answer that until probably like about 4 years ago of like, oh, I see now why I picked. They're just unemotionally unavailable. And I am the hero and I can save everybody. And that was my answer of like, I could fix them instead of fixing myself because it was too hard to look at myself at the time, right? So, like, what would you say to somebody who knows their truth but is like terrified of what it may cost them or like looking at themselves in the mirror? And if this episode is bringing something up for you, especially around relationships, people pleasing, overgiving, emotional triggers, or repeating the same patterns, I want you to grab my ebook. This ebook will help you start seeing the subconscious patterns that have been running your life, your relationships, and your reactions, so that you can finally release what no longer feels aligned. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding yourself, regulating your nervous system, and choosing different from a place of self-trust. If you're ready to stop repeating the same cycles and come back home to yourself, grab my ebook. The link is below in the show notes.
Well, that's a great question, and it's a really tough one to answer because there's nothing consistent about it, right? Like it is a case by case determination. And I would not have blown up my family. I didn't think I was blowing up my family
Yeah.
um, by protecting my kids, but there was never any question, right? So if my kids hadn't been abused, I wouldn't have confronted anybody. I
Right.
wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have told anybody anything because it wasn't necessary. What was necessary is that I knew. And because of therapists, because of like family dynamics, I absolutely knew that it would not be received. And
Hmm.
so I wasn't going to do it. And I still wouldn't do it. I would never do it because they weren't ready. And so
Hmm.
the consequences were just painful.
Yeah.
There's no good outcome. So for me, like my advice is, and it's a really personal thing, is to listen to yourself, right? Like that is always what I believe in. And so it's different. It's different for everyone. And the most important thing is that you know, and the most important thing is that you are in relationship with yourself around that knowing of your own value and your own worth. And that is the most important thing that I could do for myself and ended up like being really, kind of like backed into a corner around that. And I would not have discovered my own strength and power had that not happened. And so being sued and excommunicated, I was devastated. And I was like, well, here's the proof, right? Like I actually am a horrible person and
Right.
I don't know how to overcome this. And so, like my kids were little. It was right before the holidays. Like it was a disaster. I was a disaster. I felt like I was walking around with a gaping hole through my center. And so, my husband dealt with it in his way and I dealt with it in my way, but which was like working through it creatively. But in that process, I discovered like the truth of myself. And that's like love. And it's an ember of this incredible power that dwells within all of us. And so if there's something that we're afraid to look at, I'm like, let's jump in. Like, I'll take your hand and let's jump off the cliff because there's something on the other side of this that is true empowerment and peace and groundedness in a way that you cannot even begin to imagine. So it is going from this sort of external need to be accepted and validated to an internal knowing that I am whole and fine and loving and people can be who they are and I get to be who I am. And that's freedom. Like for me, it was utter and total freedom. And it was through the gates of like total hell,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that I
How it
wouldn't,
works,
right?
right?
It's how it works. And so when people are like, I don't want to do this, I'm like, okay, you might not be ready and you'll know. And what the darkness and the prison of
Hmm.
before versus after, I'm like, please trust me that you're going to be okay and it's worth it. But
Yeah.
people have to be ready for that. And
Yeah.
it's a ride, right? Like it's a ride and
Yeah.
I remember a therapist, running into therapists that are like having their own biases, like what you were talking about is devastating because that's external. And that was like wanting approval still and
Yeah.
wanting to be understood by somebody else. And so that self-witnessing for me became crucial
Right.
to what I'm talking about. Self-sourcing, self-witnessing, knowing who we are inside
Right.
is it's just fundamentally important to living a healthy, prosperous life.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for saying that too, because I feel like through my own like heartbreak or like total rejection, it literally has became or has it was, I think, the moment of like one of the moments. I've had many moments, but many that I can remember of like a catalyst that like I could rediscover my self-worth. Like somebody could not even look at me today and tell me or try to like shake my self-worth. So like they just can't. It's like I have worked and I continue to work on there'll be moments that come up that I'm like, like, okay. But it's like I then just go look within myself. And I think that that is like, that's a foundation. And like, of from what it before, it was never like that to be like somebody would say something to me and I'm like second guessing myself. The full moon yesterday really showed me that I do still overthink. And I still give these long fucking explanations of like why I choose this. So it's like I yesterday I declared that I'm not giving explanations anymore. Like no is a complete answer. Like that is not going to work for me. I'm not available for that. Like no sorry after. Like it's just that's what it is and I think that that is like the next thing of like my worth because it's like am I going to put myself in that situation. So I'd love to hear your kind of like catalyst or like how you define self-worth through the shift that you've experienced.
I don't know how I would define it other than it's complete. Like we're all complete and whole. And when
Hmm.
we reject parts of ourselves, 'cause I was rejecting left, right, and center, I was
Right.
trying to become what other people would value. And you never are truly yourself. And so I define self-worth as already complete and whole and resting within us. And it's uncovering all the conditioning and the false identity and the limiting beliefs that we learn as a way to like maneuver through the relationships in our life. So it's like this peeling back of, is this true? Is that true? Did this, what lens did I have on here? And for me, it was going like, I really, the way soul portraits work is that when I'm handling materials of my own life, like this letter is a version of myself. Like it is
Yeah.
literally holding the energy of who I was when I wrote it or received it. That photograph holds the energy of who I was when it was taken.
Yeah.
So these versions of myself, when I'm holding those materials, I'm instantly in contact with who
Yeah.
I used to be. And so I'm honoring that person. I'm honoring that version. I am not meeting that photograph with condemnation. I'm meeting it with as much compassion as I can possibly muster. And in the beginning, it was really hard, right? I was like reminding myself or revisiting these experiences that were incredibly painful. And
Yeah.
I hated myself fully.
Yeah.
And so like that contraction when I would see a letter or a photograph and was complete, right? And so tearing it up and like transforming it was incredibly powerful for me because it let me deconstruct what I thought I was and reconstruct who I really am on canvas. And it was something without words. Like I let my materials speak for me.
Yeah.
And I could just like let it go. And the first time this happened, it was like rock bottom in my studio. And then 5 hours later, felt like 10 minutes, and I was a different person. Like I was just a completely different person. And granted, I spent the next 5 years doing that on repeat. I just had so much to work through
Yeah.
before I was ready to offer it to other people, or even like working with my own, like, who the hell do I think I am to I'm not a therapist, right? So I married a therapist, like he's credentialed up the wazoo, and I'm like, well, shit, I don't like who am I to stand in front of these people and say what this can do for you? And I'm like, well, I've walked through my own trenches. Like I spent
Yeah.
40 years walking through my own trenches. I'm my own credential. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
resonate with me or you're not. And I don't know, like to feel so broken. And then I'm like, there's no such thing as broken. Like it's just
Right.
a perception.
Right.
And I want people to take those pieces that they've identified as broken and look directly at them. And only not to relive like something horrible, but to recognize that it's just a perspective. It's not true. Like you're not broken.
Right.
That's just a lens. And it's time to dissolve those lenses one step at a time so that we can really know our own power and who we are.
Yeah, I love that too. I guess in a way I would look at old I would look at old pictures and my husband always says to me, "Why do you always look back at those things?" or "Why do you always read back in your journal?" or like whatever. And I would always say like because I want to feel proud of myself. Maybe at that moment or maybe in the moment that I'm like looking back at stuff like reminiscing, like I forget what I had to go through. I mean, not really. Like if I think about it, I don't go through those tabs in my brain. It's just data for me. And I'm starting to write my memoir and my book that I have to go back and get dates. I have to go back and remember and talk about it and like not relive it, but like when I'm writing about it, I can't just write this and have no story attached to it? And it's like I don't have an emotion attached to it anymore. So it's kind of hard. Like when people talk about my story, and I'm like, where would you like me to insert my origin story? Like, what do you want to know? You have to be more specific, which is why I'm like on my own podcast. I'm like, okay, I don't want you to go back from the beginning, but like Cliff Notes version of like that moment. Cause there's like tons of moments. And I think that when you said about your soul portrait process, that material thing, I think it's really powerful because even now, back 3, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, even like last year, I can look at a picture and think, wow, that girl was so like, my body was like perfect. I liked it. I was skinny as ever, as skinniest of my life, and like I liked my body, but I can look at her face and see how depressed she still is, suppressing emotions, anxiety like through the roof, like trying to ask, like it's like constant approval. Her self-worth is still shit, like that is the stuff that now I look at, then I'm like, I wonder if anybody else sees this, like because I know I see it. Yeah, I'm sure they did see it, so it's really is powerful, and I love that the work that you're doing because when you talk about accreditations, like people ask me all the time about like different things about, I talk a lot about human design. And I always say, just a disclaimer, I'm not certified in human design. And I don't believe you need to be to talk about personal experiences with anything. Now, if you're claiming to be a therapist, doctor, surgeon, that's a little bit different of a story. That's not what I'm talking about. Like
Right.
that's different. You are dealing with people's lives. Like you're still dealing with people's lives here, but you're using your experiences to, guide them, help facilitate their own healing from themselves. You're not healing them, you're helping them heal from your experiences. Like I think that's really different. And like you're right, like I believe the same thing that you do is, I am the accreditation. My story and what I've been through and what I can help you with is that. And that's why people work with you. Like that's exactly why people work with you. And it's like when people are like, you know, people are not buying my stuff. They don't, this, I'm like, because are you being you? And most of the times it's like, no. Okay. So talk about you and talk about your experiences. And then all of a sudden it shifts. Like I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not telling you anything else. Like you just are, it's like pretending, performing, being authentic. And I think that that is, the universe is really pushing all of us to be, you're not going to survive out here if you're not authentic.
It's true. And
Yeah.
so who are you really, right? Like that
Yeah.
becomes the question. And that is the question. Like that's who am I underneath this experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who am I without this relationship? Who am I not as a
Right.
mother? We have so many roles and hats that we
Yeah. Yeah.
juggle. And so who are you without any of them? And I love that question.
Yeah.
And and uh and are you living according to that? And
Yeah.
if you're not, it's really unpleasant, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not fun.
Yeah.
So like there are a lot of platitudes around that, but until you're in enough pain, you're not gonna rock the boat. Like
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. I usually just say just a rock floating around, vibrating around in space and just in this meat suit. So that's
right.
all we really are. So don't
Yeah.
take your life so seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
So for anybody listening that maybe feels disconnected from themselves, maybe their truth or even their creativity, what is like one simple way that you can guide them to reconnecting with their authentic self today?
Well, I love asking people, not everybody wants to doodle in the margins while they're on hold. If you do, that's great. But then I just like to bring awareness to creativity, which is absolutely everywhere. Like it's in the coffee you make in the morning, it's in every single meal, it's walking from one edge of the room to the next, it's
Yeah.
vacuuming, it's like all around you, it's in play. So, creativity, whatever your creative language is, where you lose track of time and you're actually having fun, is your creative language. So, for some people, it's running, for some, right? Whatever it is,
Yeah.
gardening. So it's kind of endless, but it's everywhere. And to tap into that is tapping into your intuition and your power. So I love asking people to draw and doodle and color outside of the lines. Like let it go. Like there are no rules. And people say to me all the time, I'm not creative. And I'm just like, that's not true. You're born creative
Yeah.
and you were told by some teacher or parent that, right, like your little drawing didn't get put up on the wall and Timmy's did or whatever, and it wrecks us. And
Yeah.
and it wrecks us because we love it so much. We wouldn't care if we didn't love the drawing that got quote unquote rejected
Right.
because we're not caring about what it looks like. We're caring about what happens when we're in the process of making. And so I really want to encourage people to trust that again, to get back to that creative play. Because and so if you're doodling in the margin, then you're an artist, right? And if you
Right.
love somebody else's work, then it's art, right? It's how it makes you feel. That's the only determining factor. And so nobody else gets to decide what is art, what is an artist, who is an artist. Nobody gets to tell you that. Like if you're making a mark on a page, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Or making a mud pie, like whatever it is.
Right.
I'm not a great cook. My husband is. Like everybody has their own
Right.
artistry.
Yeah. And I love that reminder too, because my daughter, I think this is conditioning. Well, it is conditioning of like when she colors, I'm like, oh, make sure you color in the lines. Literally, when you just said that, I was like, shit, Lauren, you literally like just did, what she said not to do. But it's like, I don't like, she'll say to me, it's okay, mommy. I like this. And like, I said this to my mom, like my mom would never hang up my paintings or like she would never hang up my crazy ass thing. And like I kind of adapted that too. And my daughter starts hanging it. She goes, well, if you're not going to put it up, I'm going to tape it to the wall. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So like I left it up for a little bit. She made rules about taking your shoes off because my husband's really bad at like walking in from work. He has these nasty shoes that he like walks around Center City, Philadelphia in. I'm like, can you take your shoes off? And so she made a sign of like, take your shoes off. She drew the shoes, she colored it in, like, and she just posted it. This is a rule in the house and you need to follow it. Meanwhile, she's the same way. She doesn't take her, anyway. So it's like, so I just let her have her paintings up because I'm like, this won't be here forever. Like, put your paintings up, like, it's really, scribbles, like I'm like, you're six, which, she does like coloring. And I've kind of trained her into like, if she's mad, angry, she colors and she'll color and it's not very nice, but when she's mad at me, she'll draw a heart and she'll say, no, I don't love my mommy. So I'm like, oh, okay. Does that mean you're mad at me? And she goes, you're just mean. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. It's okay. Mommy can be mean sometimes. And she's like, and I explained to her about like big feelings. Mommy can have big feelings too, but mommy's big feelings are going to hurt your feelings. So mommy can control her feelings. And it's just like interesting how like she teaches me the same thing. And she's looking at me like, you have big feelings? Yeah, I have big feelings too. So it's just very interesting because she thinks mommy like never cries, she never gets upset, all that stuff. So I'm starting to show her through my own work of like I'm allowed to be upset too. And it's not your fault. The one time I just started crying for no reason. Like I don't know why I was crying. Like there's no something that happened. She's like, "Why do you look like that? Why do you sound like that? Why is there stuff coming out of your eyes?" Like she's so like, and I'm thinking to myself, God, she doesn't even understand because I don't cry in front of her. So I feel like that is really a reminder. I mean, it's probably a reminder to everybody listening, but thank you for that. And I think this is really powerful because like your courage and honesty and just like showing who you were and like reclaiming your voice and your worth, I think is really empowering because it gives other people permission after they listen to this podcast to like really be able to kind of like, okay, I can do this. Obviously, go work with you. So where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram and Facebook
Okay.
mostly, but I have a website, soulportrait.art, and a digital course is another way for them to walk through it. And oftentimes when people enter that universe, I am building out a community for that so that people can ask questions and really have a way to talk about it and talk about things that come up together. And so like I love talking to people about creativity and really like loosening the boundaries around what that means and
Mhm.
how powerful it is to just make something and use your
Yeah.
hands. Like it really quiets your mind when you're using your hands. And so yeah, I love it. And I love helping people reconnect with their creativity.
Yeah, I love that so much. So, if this episode resonated with you, I want to invite you into deeper work inside the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, where we have conversations just like this one, where you get seen, supported, and guided, and to reconnect with your truth and your voice, and to maybe the next aligned step for you. You don't have to do this alone. And make sure you check out all of her links. And if this episode spoke to you, I want you to share it. You can take a screenshot, you can tag us, and we would love to see what lands. Don't forget to subscribe, just a gentle reminder, and to our YouTube, and so you don't miss future conversations. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.